day 6 of our Lessons in Leadership videos. We are joined by Robby Dawkins. How are you today, Robby?
Doing great.
Are you enjoying your wine?
I am. I'm having a lovely experience here, and I've never said lovely until I come to England. But it's a lovely time.
We're glad we've taught you something. Robby, do you want to just tell us a bit about yourself, who you are, what you do?
Well, 17 years ago, I planted a church in Aurora, Illinois, which is in a poor urban community part of Chicago. I had been a youth pastor before that for 12 years, youth pastoring in various sized churches, 250, 300, even one church where it was 14,000 members, and I was one of 3 youth pastors. And so I've had the majority of my life in the ministry. My parents were also pastors, and so but have been pastoring in Aurora for the past 17 years.
And you have six children.
6
Wow.
boys.
Just boys?
6 boys, ranging in ages from 3 up to 20.
That is amazing.
Yeah, my 20-year-old is here with me, and the rest of them are currently right now in Brighton.
Brighton.
Yeah, and they'll come over in a day or so.
Fantastic. Robby, this video is kind of directed at kind of 20s to 30s young emerging leaders. What does your kind of 20s and 30s look like?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, for me in my 20s, I was really trying to figure out who I was, where I was, what was going on. I had a passion for ministry. I always had. All my entire life, I had always said that I was going to be a missionary. And just always had even from the time I was really, really little, always envisioned myself doing ministry. And so, in 20s, I was really hungry, to see that kind of fulfilled and anxious and quite ambitious, not in a negative way, but I think in a positive way, but just to do ministry and do things. But, and then, I got married when I was I think a month away from being 26. And when I got married, actually, I had been a youth pastor before that, but sort of doors of youth ministry opened back up to me, and started doing that, and up into when I was 30 is when I planted the church. And even all through the ministry though experience, I was trying to still kind of figure out, like, what's my place, what's my contribution, what does this mean, having to work with different forms of leadership, different styles of church government. Some places where the pastor was sort of the the person, that's it, whatever decisions they made. Other places it would be more board run, eldership run, various forms of leadership and things like that. And so I had been sort of in through that, and I think that part of that was also some of the sort of seeking out, who am I, and what am I called to, and what is my goal. But I always had a passion for evangelism, for bringing people to Christ. And even when I was at the really large church, I always had a real heart for people that were sort of disenfranchised. And so I remember being called in multiple times by the church leaders and saying, hey, the people that you're spending most of your time with aren't the ones who pay the bills around here. And they would tell me, you need to put more attention to, the people who are more main contributors. And it just always frustrated me and concerned me, because I had a real heart for the poor. I had a real heart for, even though when I was much younger in my teens, I always said I was never going to pastor in a poor urban area because I'd grown up in that. And I just decided I hated that. But then that's all I did.
Robby, what is it that you would say you personally do to invest in younger emerging leaders? I think it's great that your son's travelling with you, and I know you have younger guys travelling with you. Do you see that as a part of your ministry?
Absolutely. My passion isn't doing the stuff that I do as much as it is giving people the opportunity to do it, giving others the opportunity to do it. And so what my desire is to create a context, is to create an environment where people will feel that they can step out and take risks, and praying for people, ministering people, giving words of knowledge, preaching, in their communities, even just sharing their faith next door with their neighbors, and so sort of giving them that sort of, launch pad of expectancy of seeing God do something, and helping them to understand that when things look like nothing's happening, that there's actually really something that is taking place. and that the Lord is at work and is doing things. And so I think it's really crucial to bring people alongside of you. And this, especially in a lot of the power ministry, it's not something that's, we say this, and it was really John Wimber who used to say this, the founder of the Vineyard, and say it's more caught than taught. And so bringing people along beside you, it's important because they're going to catch it more than you can teach it to them. And so, like, for instance, in going to other countries where they don't speak English, what we found is, like, our interpreters and stuff like that, by the time it's over, they're giving prophetic words when they've never done that before, and it's the main reason why is because they just had such close proximity, and so they catch it. And so taking people along with you is really important. I always try to bring young people along to help them catch it, so that they'll go do it. Same with healing, same with anything. It really is kind of a more caught than taught, and so having proximity is crucial for that to happen.
And what would you say is probably day in, day out the hardest part of your job?
Wow, day in and day out, hardest part of the job. I guess, one of the things is really fighting for that sort of quiet time with God. It really is a challenge. I would like to make it sound like that's all I do. But it's not. I'm a father of 6 boys, and I've got a life. I've got, things that need to be done around the house, things that need to be done, relationally in the family, things like that, and not even counting the stuff with ministry. And just really fighting for that time. I kind of got up early this morning and just, as I was in bed and breakfast here, and I was exhausted. I really wanted to sleep more, but I just had this sort of burning of, man, I just need to hear the voice, and you've got thousands of people here going, man, we're hearing God's voice through you, but I need that. I need that time just away where I'm just, and it's almost like too, like a sacrifice thing where you're just telling the Lord look, this is really about you. This is just about loving you and being passionate about you. This is not about, my giftedness or my ability. That's not the relationship. That's not where the relationship lies. It's not in the performance. It's not in what takes place. Whether the preaching was powerful or mighty or shaking or stirring or how many people respond. But it's sort of in that place when it's just you and just God. Knowing this is where my identity comes from. This is where the relationship really is. And fighting for that and contending for that can really be a battle sometimes, especially in the busyness of life. But it's crucial. It's just absolutely crucial. Not to see more power happen, but just to stay connected with who the relationship is with and who God is. That's the crucial part to fight for.
Robby, what would you say to younger guys and girls who are perhaps on the edge or the brink of stepping into areas of leadership? Is there like one piece of advice out of experience that you would give to them?
Yeah, the biggest thing that I would really encourage them to do is not worry so much about what people think of them, and not get into man pleasing. I think I spent a huge amount of my life really battling man pleasing. And battling, what do people think of me? Who to impress? Are they going to like what I'm saying? Are they going to think that I'm gifted? Are they going to think this and this? And the reality is, what has opened the door for me today, without question, it's when I resolved to be that person of just saying, all I really care about is just what the Lord sees, what the Lord thinks about, and to realize that everybody else's opinions are going to vacillate. What people think is just going to be up and down. But realize that it's not the opportunity, and that it's really not the opportunity being given by men, but by God. And God sees it, and He sees that heart, He sees that sacrifice, He sees that yieldedness and that givenness, and to realize that I don't need that being given to me by somebody in the right, and to know that God's really keeping track. And so I tell people all this time, don't pray for people for healing to get the stories. Do it because it's what pleases the Father. It's what doing what Jesus did. It's following through, and it's just bringing pleasure to the Father. And if that's the attitude, everybody will see it. But if it's trying to have the story, have the experience, have that next big thing that people want to see or do, it'll stay in obscurity because it's that heart of for Him, not for us.
You're talking today about kind of risk taking. I'm guessing, I find it really scary personally. Does it get easier as you kind of get more experience in the stories and stuff, or does it still freak you out each time?
People are always surprised that before I go do something, like, anything really, for the Lord like that, I mean, whatever it is, praying for somebody, giving a prophetic word, stepping out, I'll get a cold chill that goes down my spine every time, and that's fear. But what I've learned in my experience is that fear that I feel is not my fear. Because here's the deal. How the spirit of sickness, of infirmity manifests in the body is disease, pain, death, agony, suffering. How the spirit of fear manifests is with the feeling of fear. And so when I feel that fear, I recognize it's not my fear. It's the manifestation of the spirit of fear. And so it doesn't belong to me. And so Satan ministers fear. And so what's happening, and he only does it with people who are going to do something that's going to bring change and break down his kingdom and elevate God's. And so the fear that you're feeling is a preemptive strike that Satan is releasing, and he's ministering fear to you, and he's ministering actually the fear that he feels about what you're about to go do. And so once you realize that, you realize the fear that I'm feeling is not mine. And so it's what Satan feels about me. And so out of my mouth, now there's nothing in Scripture that indicates that Satan can read your mind, but it does show that he can throw thoughts in it, the fiery darts of the enemy, and it says take those thoughts captive, and that's how we know he's talking about thoughts. And so the only way that Satan knows whether he's made a hit is either by how you respond, or lack of response, or by what you say. And so when all of a sudden that fear comes, first thing that comes out of my mouth is I'm like, oh, this is going to be really good. Last night I had a horrible night. I literally had a lot of demonic attack. I mean, I was feeling things in my room. I was feeling impressions on my bed. Really bizarre, crazy stuff. And the whole time I'm like, I know I've got you on the run. I know I've got you scared. I have a nickname for Satan. It's Lucy. For all the Lucy's out there, I'm sorry.
It's my middle name.
So sorry.
It's rude.
But I always picture him, in sort of the figure of him being, red and horns, but with, pigtails and in a little tutu, a ballerina tutu, but looking, evil, but him just being little Lucy, And so I always just say, Lucy, I know I've got you scared. And that's why you're doing this, because of what's going to happen. And so what broke loose today, I knew was a result of the enemy seeing what's coming. He can sense it, he can smell it, he can detect it. It's how he knew Moses was coming. It's how he knew Jesus was coming. He doesn't know the future, but he can sense what the plan of God is. And so my response is, this is going to be good. God's going to do incredible things. People are going to be healed. People are going to be touched. There's going to be an impact. And then if I shrink back, if I don't do the stuff that I'm feeling to do, then Satan goes, I got him. I got him hooked. If I go forward and I do it, then he's like, man, don't try that again, because he's going to have more energy to go there. And it's saying, like, if all of a sudden you get bombarded with lustful thoughts about somebody, start praying for that person. Start interceding for that person. Even if it's a stranger as you're driving down the street. Just, Lord, I just call that person into your kingdom. I call them into relationship with you. And all of a sudden Satan's going to be going, man, don't fire lustful thoughts at him or her, because they're going to intercede for the people that you do that with. And so that's how you take that thought captive. You bring it up back under the lordship of Jesus Christ. And so moving forward with the thing that's scary is where you break down the enemy. So it never gets to the place to where that you're not nervous or you're not a little bit shaky as you go. But you just say, listen, that's just confirmation and it's affirmation of what I'm about to do is in God's desire and God's plan for me.
And then I have one last question, which
Sure.
we've asked all of our guests. A really simple question. Jonny and I are both 21. If you could tell yourself one thing at the age of 21 that you know now, what would it be?
Boy, that is not a simple question. But, I would just say, start, again, it's kind of what I said earlier, don't look to people, for position or things. and looking for that break. Really recognize God sees everything that you do, everything, and really serve what's going to really bring Him pleasure. Share your faith as boldly, as strongly as you know how. There's some that have been like, should I go on this missions trip? Should I be a part of this church planting team? Should I do this? It's going to be a risk. It may totally, be, dodging a valuable career, but do it for the sake of the kingdom of God. Do it and don't shrink back from it. Expect God to show up and take that risk. Step out into that unknown. Step out into that. Anything that we do for the kingdom is going to be something that God is going to bless. Even if God will reroute you if he doesn't want you doing that thing. He will reroute you. And so my thing with the Lord is always like, Lord, I'm going this direction unless you stop me. That's my deal. I'm going to move forward here unless you pull the reins back. That's where I'm going. Part of that's probably my personality, but yet it's always worked. Because it's just moving forward. Scripture says the steps of a righteous person, are directed by God. Notice the steps, not the stance, not the standing still, not the waiting for, not the thoughts, but the steps, the action. And so when you go to take steps, when you go to take action, expect God to show up but you got to be willing to take a sharp right or a sharp left or to turn around. You got to be willing to do that. But keep that in mind. Go for that thing that and let me tell you something, God always pays back what we give to Him. If He has something for us in business, maybe starting a business or doing something, but even if it's taking a mission trip first or going and serving in a gap year somewhere, do that and watch how God provides for you. Nothing we do for Him is ever lost.
Amazing. Robby, thanks so much for being with us today. It's been lovely to have you here.
Yeah.
Been a pleasure. Thank you guys.
And that is the last of our lessons in leadership. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon.